The long road from Lagos to the village was filled with movement. Buses overloaded with passengers zoomed past, traders carried baskets of plantain and oranges on their heads, and motorcyclists weaved in and out of traffic. Inside a sleek black SUV sat Kelvin, a 27-year-old software engineer. He had lived his whole life in the bustle of Lagos, where every day was about technology, deadlines, and city noise. But now he was on his way with his parents and younger brother to their ancestral village in Enugu State for the annual New Yam Festival. Kelvin leaned his head against the window as they drove deeper into the countryside. The landscape changed slowly. Glass buildings gave way to red soil, wide farmland, and small mud houses. The air grew fresher. He watched children run along dusty paths, chasing old tires and laughing as if the world owed them nothing but joy. When they finally arrived at his grandfather's compound, the sound of the talking drum greeted them. Elderly men in white kaftans clapped hands in welcome. Women ululated, and cousins he had not seen in years rushed to hug him. Laughter and handshakes filled the air. Kelvin smiled politely, but inside, he felt like an outsider. Lagos had shaped him, yet the village seemed to whisper something his heart could not ignore. That night, while others were busy preparing food and decorating for the festival, Kelvin sat under the open sky. The moon shone brightly, and the stars scattered like diamonds. For the first time in a long while, he felt a strange peace. What he did not know was that this journey home would change his story forever. Morning broke with the sound of roosters crowing and drums echoing from the village square. The air smelled of fried akra and palm oil stew. The festival was drawing near, and everyone seemed busy. Kelvin decided to stroll around the market square. He wanted to see the life of the village up close. There, beside a wooden stall covered with bright ankara cloth, he saw her. Chisholm. She was arranging neat rows of yam tubers, her slim hands moving with care. She wore a simple ankara gown, her hair tied with a scarf, yet she carried herself with quiet grace. Her face was warm, her eyes alive, and her smile gentle as she handed pieces of roasted yam to some laughing children. Kelvin stopped, watching her from a distance. Something about her drew him in, something pure, something different from the fast-paced city women he knew. One of the little boys dropped a yam tuber by mistake. Kelvin instinctively bent down to pick it up, only to realize Chisholm had bent down at the same time. Their hands brushed lightly, and both paused. She lifted her gaze, her dark eyes meeting his. "Thank you," she said softly, almost shyly. "You're welcome," Kelvin replied, his voice surprisingly gentle. The children giggled, and Chisholm smiled again, this time brighter. Kelvin found himself smiling back without even thinking. That small moment stayed with him. As he walked back to the compound, he kept seeing her face in his mind. He didn't know her story, but something told him he would see her again, and that this encounter was only the beginning. The next day, the village square was alive with music. Drummers beat their talking drums with energy, masquerades danced, and villagers prepared for the evening celebration. Kelvin walked slowly, enjoying the fresh air. Lagos never gave him this kind of peace. As he turned a corner near the palm wine stand, he saw her again, Chisholm. She was carrying a calabash of water on her head, moving gracefully through the crowd. Her balance amazed him. "Let me help you," Kelvin offered when she stopped by the well. Chisholm laughed softly. "You're not used to carrying calabash, city boy. You will drop it." Kelvin smiled. "You could teach me." Their conversation started there, light, teasing, natural. They talked about simple things, how the festival brought people together, how yam was considered the king of crops, how Lagos was always in a hurry. Chisholm spoke of her dreams, how she wanted to continue her education, how she loved the village but wished for more opportunities. Kelvin listened, fascinated. Unlike the women he knew in Lagos, she wasn't impressed by flashy cars or expensive clothes. Her honesty and quiet strength made her different. As the drums echoed across the square, Kelvin realized something he had not felt in a long time. Connection. A bond had begun, fragile but powerful, like a seed pushing through the soil. It didn't take long before people noticed. In small villages, nothing stays hidden. The way Kelvin looked for Chisholm at the market, the way she smiled when he walked by, it was enough to stir whispers. One afternoon, Kelvin's cousin Uchenna nudged him as they sat in the compound. "So, you've been spending time with that yam seller," he teased, smirking. "Careful, cousin. People are watching." Kelvin brushed it off, but the word spread. His aunt, who always carried herself proudly, frowned when she heard. "A Lagos boy like you," she told his mother, "must not get carried away by a village girl. What future can she offer him?" Even in the market, Chisholm began to feel the stares. Women whispered behind her back. Some admired her courage, but others mocked quietly, saying she was aiming too high. That evening, as Kelvin returned from the festival rehearsal, his father called him aside. "Son," he said firmly, "I hear rumors. You are here for the festival, not to get entangled with a girl who does not match our status. Remember who you are." Kelvin nodded, but inside he felt restless. He couldn't stop thinking about Chisholm's laughter, her honesty, the way she looked at life. For the first time, he questioned whether status and wealth should decide who one could love. And deep in her heart, Chisholm wondered too, was she wrong for letting herself dream about a man like him? The evening of the new Yam Festival arrived, and the entire village came alive. The market square glowed with lanterns, the air filled with the sound of flutes, drums, and laughter. Women dressed in brightly patterned wrappers danced gracefully, while men in traditional agbada clapped to the rhythm. Kelvin sat with his family in the front row as elders gave speeches, blessing the new harvest. But his eyes wandered, searching the crowd. Then he saw her, Chisholm. She wore a simple white blouse tucked into a flowing Ankara skirt, her scarf tied neatly. The lanterns lit her face, making her look almost unreal. As the masquerades danced, Kelvin slipped away from his seat and joined the crowd where Chisholm stood. She laughed when she saw him. "City boy, can you dance the village drums?" she teased. Kelvin chuckled. "You'll have to teach me." She pulled him gently into the circle. At first, his movements were awkward, and the villagers laughed. But soon, Kelvin let go of his pride and copied Chisholm's graceful steps. Together they danced, their laughter blending with the music. Then, just as the drums slowed, the first fireworks shot into the night sky. Boom! A burst of red sparks lit up above them, followed by green and gold. The crowd gasped in delight, children jumping with joy. Kelvin and Chisholm stood side by side, looking up. For a moment, the noise of the crowd faded. In the glow of the fireworks, Kelvin turned slightly and caught her smiling face. Something inside him stirred deeply, an unspoken feeling, strong and undeniable. That night, under the moonlight, when the festival quieted down, Kelvin walked her home. They spoke about life, dreams, and family. He told her how empty Lagos sometimes felt, even with all its wealth. She told him how the village, though small, gave her peace. As they reached her gate, they paused. The silence between them was soft, not heavy. Chisholm smiled shyly. "Good night, Kelvin." "Good night," he whispered, but his heart was louder than his words. That night, he could not sleep. He realized it was no longer just admiration. It was love, raw and unplanned. The festival continued into the next day, and the village buzzed with pride. The masquerades paraded through the streets. Children followed them with sticks of roasted corn, and drummers never let the rhythm fade. Kelvin felt lighter than he had in years. The village, with its laughter and music, felt more alive than the noisy streets of Lagos. But the peace broke when Kelvin's friends from Lagos arrived for the festival. They came in flashy cars, wearing designer clothes and carrying the pride of the city on their shoulders. "Kelvin," one of them shouted, hugging him tightly. "So this is the famous festival. Finally, we see what keeps you here." Kelvin smiled politely, though part of him worried. His friends had never respected anything outside their world of money and speed. Later, as the group toured the market square, they stumbled upon Chisholm arranging vegetables by her yam stall. Her face brightened when she saw Kelvin. "Good afternoon," she greeted with her usual calm. "This is Chisholm, a friend," Kelvin introduced proudly. His friends exchanged looks. One of them smirked and whispered loud enough to be heard. "So, this is the girl keeping our Kelvin busy? A yam seller?" Another chuckled. "Kelvin, Lagos women will faint if they hear this." The laughter stung. Chisholm lowered her eyes, her hands trembling slightly as she arranged the vegetables. Kelvin's chest tightened with anger. "That's enough," Kelvin said sharply, his voice firm. "Show some respect." His friends quieted, surprised at his tone. But the damage was done. Chisholm excused herself quickly and walked away, her dignity wrapped in silence. The laughter of his friends echoed in her ears as she left. That night, Chisholm sat by her mother outside their small home, her heart heavy, trying to hide her tears. "Mama, I should not allow my heart to wander," she whispered. "He belongs to a different world." Meanwhile, Kelvin argued with his friends in the compound. "If you cannot respect her, then you do not respect me," he told them. For the first time, he realized how deep the gap was between the two worlds he belonged to and how hard it would be to keep them together. The morning after the clash with his friends, Kelvin could not rest. He replayed Chisholm's wounded expression over and over. He knew he had to find her. He went to the market where she sold yams. At first, she avoided his eyes, arranging her goods as if he wasn't there. The villagers whispered from nearby stalls, curious about what would happen. "Chisholm," Kelvin said softly, stepping closer. "Please look at me." Reluctantly, she turned, her face calm but guarded. "You don't need to explain, Kelvin," she said quietly. "I understand. People from your world don't mix with people like me. It's better to stop before it goes too far." Kelvin stepped closer, lowering his voice so only she could hear. "Don't say that. Yesterday, I was angry, not because of what they said, but because they don't know you. They don't know the kind of person you are." Chisholm's hand stilled. Slowly, she looked at him. "You're strong, kind, and real," he continued. "That's rare, Chisholm. In Lagos, I've met people with money, with status, but none of them have what you have. And I won't let anyone make you feel less than who you are." Her eyes softened, though doubts still lingered. "But your family, your future, how can I fit into that?" Kelvin held her gaze. "I don't care how difficult it gets. I'll stand by you. That's my promise." For a moment, the busy market seemed to fade. Chisholm felt her walls breaking. She wanted to push him away, but instead, she found herself whispering, "Kelvin." Though she didn't say more, the hope in her voice told him his promise had found its way into her heart. By evening, whispers had reached the compound. Kelvin returned home to find his parents waiting on the veranda. His father sat upright, his walking stick resting by his side. His mother's face was calm, but her eyes carried concern. "Kelvin," his father began without ceremony, "we've heard enough about this girl." The yam seller from the market. Kelvin clenched his fists but stayed quiet. His mother spoke more gently. "Son, you know we want the best for you. Your father and I have already discussed with our family friends in Lagos. Their daughter, Idora, is well-educated, from a respected home, and—" Kelvin cut in, his tone firm. "But I didn't choose her. My heart is with Chisholm." His father's face darkened. "Your heart?" He leaned forward. "Do you think marriage is built on feelings alone? We worked hard to raise you, to give you a future, and you would throw it away for a girl who has nothing? Think of the family name. Think of your responsibility." Silence followed. The evening breeze rustled the leaves above them. Kelvin felt a heaviness in his chest. His father's words were clear. This was no longer just about love. It was about tradition, pride, and control. He rose slowly from his chair. "I hear you, father, but I cannot pretend to love someone I don't. Chisholm is not nothing. She's everything I've been searching for." His mother called after him as he walked away, but he didn't stop. Inside, he was torn. He loved his family, but he loved Chisholm too. And soon, he would be forced to choose between the two. After weeks of tension, Chisholm finally made her decision. Though her heart ached, she believed walking away was the only way to protect Kelvin from his family's disapproval. One quiet evening, she asked to meet him by the mango tree at the edge of the village. The drums from the festival were long silent, the air filled only with the chirping of crickets. "Kelvin," she said softly, holding back tears, "you must go back to Lagos and focus on your life. Your family expects great things from you. I don't want to be the reason you fight them." Kelvin shook his head in disbelief. "Chisholm, don't do this. You are not a burden. You are my peace. I don't care what anyone says." But she forced a smile, hiding the storm inside her. "One day, you'll understand why I let you go." Kelvin's chest tightened. He wanted to argue, but the resolve in her eyes was unshakable. Days later, when the festival ended, Kelvin left the village with his family. The journey back to Lagos felt longer than usual. He stared out of the window, but all he could see was Chisholm's face fading in the distance. And in the village, Chisholm carried on quietly, pouring herself into her mother's stall and daily chores. But at night, when no one was watching, she whispered his name into the silence and wondered if love always had to hurt this much. Months passed. In Lagos, Kelvin buried himself in work. By day, he sat in his office, surrounded by computers and colleagues. By night, he lay awake, thinking of the village girl who had stolen his heart. He tried to distract himself with outings, but nothing could fill the emptiness she had left behind. In the village, Chisholm continued her routine. She fetched water at dawn, sold yams in the market, and cared for her mother. She worked tirelessly at the market and dreamed of expanding her mother's small yam business. The idea of applying for a small business loan kept coming to her mind, though it felt daunting. Still, she decided to be brave. Outwardly, she looked strong, but inside, she carried a quiet longing. One bright Monday morning, she boarded a bus to Lagos for the very first time. She wore her best Ankara gown, and her documents for the loan application were neatly packed in a small folder. By mid-morning, she arrived at the bank. The glass doors, the shiny marble floor, the neatly dressed staff, it was all new to her. She clutched her folder tightly and walked to the customer service desk. As she waited for her turn, a familiar voice caught her ear. She turned, and there he was, Kelvin, standing across the hall, dressed in a crisp shirt, speaking with one of the managers. Her breath caught. She hadn't seen him in months. For a moment, she thought her mind was playing tricks. But when Kelvin turned and their eyes met, time seemed to freeze. "Chisholm," he whispered, stunned, as he walked toward her. Her hands trembled on the folder she held. "Kelvin, I didn't expect to see you here." The bank suddenly felt too small, the voices around them fading. Months of silence and pain melted into that one moment. Fate had chosen the most unlikely place, a bank in the heart of Lagos, to remind them that their story was far from over. After Kelvin and Chisholm reconnected at the bank, he insisted on walking her out after her appointment. They sat at a small cafe nearby, catching up on all the months they had missed. "I came to Lagos for a loan," Chisholm explained, clutching her folder. "I want to expand my mother's yam business. It's small now, but I believe it can grow." Kelvin's eyes shone with admiration. "You've always been strong, Chisholm. That's what I love about you." But even as they laughed and shared stories, they knew the shadow of disapproval still loomed. Kelvin could no longer bear the silence between himself and his parents. After reuniting with Chisholm in Lagos, he knew it was time to face them directly. One evening, he sat with them in the living room of their spacious home. His father adjusted his glasses, his mother watching quietly. "Kelvin," his father began, "we hoped you had moved past this matter. You cannot build a future with that girl from the village. Think of your name, your family, your status." Kelvin leaned forward, his voice calm but steady. "Father, mother, I know you want the best for me. But what if the best isn't about wealth or background? What if it's about character, about finding someone who makes me a better man?" His mother's eyes softened slightly, but his father remained stern. Kelvin continued, "Chisholm may not come from riches, but she is hardworking, respectful, and has dreams bigger than her circumstances. She did not look at me as a man with money. She looked at me as a person. She gives me peace that all the wealth in Lagos never could." The room grew quiet. His words hung in the air. For the first time, his parents saw that this wasn't a passing feeling. It was deep, unshakable love. Finally, Kelvin added, "If you truly love me as your son, give me the chance to prove to you who she is. Don't judge her by her background. Judge her by her heart." His father sighed heavily, but did not speak. His mother placed a hand on her husband's arm. "Let us at least meet the girl," she said softly. Within a week, Chisholm was invited to Lagos. Nervous but determined, she arrived with her modest bag and a quiet grace. Kelvin welcomed her into their home, assuring her she belonged. For the next few days, Chisholm stayed with the family. She helped Kelvin's mother in the kitchen without being asked, treated the staff with kindness, and spoke with humility during family meals. She listened more than she talked, yet when she did, her words carried wisdom beyond her years. Slowly, Kelvin's parents began to see what he saw. She wasn't a distraction or a burden. She was a woman of dignity, courage, and genuine warmth. One evening, Kelvin's father called him aside. His voice was softer than before. "Perhaps we were too quick to judge. If this is the woman who brings you peace, then maybe she is worth standing beside you." Kelvin's heart swelled with relief. For the first time, he felt hope not just for love, but for family acceptance. Weeks after Chisholm's stay in Lagos, the house no longer felt the same. Kelvin's parents had grown fond of her quiet humility and gentle strength. His mother often spoke about how Chisholm carried herself with respect, while his father, though still reserved, no longer dismissed her name. One evening, the family sat together in the living room. Kelvin's father finally broke the silence. "Kelvin," he said slowly, "your mother and I have watched Chisholm. She is different from what we expected. She carries herself with dignity, and we cannot deny that she makes you happy. If this is your choice, then we will stand with you." Kelvin's heart swelled with gratitude. He turned to his parents, his voice firm but tender. "Thank you, Father. Thank you, Mother. This means more than I can ever say." The preparations for the wedding began soon after. Both families came together, village and city, rich and modest, modern and traditional. On the wedding day, the village square overflowed with joy. Kelvin arrived in a convoy of sleek cars from Lagos, his friends dressed in agbatas and suits. Chisholm, radiant in a beaded George wrapper, walked gracefully with her people, ululating and singing traditional songs. The ceremony blended two worlds seamlessly. The elders performed the kola nut and palm wine rituals, blessing the couple with wisdom and long life. A city pastor offered prayers, while a live band played both gospel and love songs. Children danced freely in the dust, their laughter mingling with the drums. As evening fell, lanterns glowed, and the sky erupted with fireworks, red, green, and golden sparks showering above them. Kelvin held Chisholm's hand as they danced, their smiles reflecting the lights in the sky. "From the first day I saw you at the Yam stall," Kelvin whispered, "I knew my life had changed. Now here we are." Chisholm's eyes glistened with tears. "We fought so much to get here, but love won in the end." And as the crowd cheered, city and village blending as one, it was clear this was more than just a wedding. It was a union of two families, two worlds, and two hearts that had refused to let go. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more touching stories that will inspire and move your heart.